Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Hello and welcome to The Nest. After a win, thankfully, after 3 long weeks, we finally got 4 points in the bag, and that is certainly a relieving feeling as an Eagles fan right now. And I tell you what, if this is not the best example of The Nest growing in its stature and spreading its wings far and wide, I don't know what is, because we have our first ever Tokyo correspondent. All the way to Japan we go to check in with Drew Jones, who joins us from Asia. Drewy, welcome, mate. You can chat to us from afar.
Hey, Garby, can you hear me?
Yeah, got you loud. I think you got better internet than you do at home, mate. You sound superb.
Yeah, I think the Wi-Fi in Japan is far advanced. So, technology's taken us to great places, so much so that we can keep the podcast going. Really exciting, wasn't it? Nice to actually be able to, after the first quarter at least, sort of sit back and enjoy winning a game of footy. Wasn't perfect by any stretch, but just exactly what we needed, really. Yeah. Grind it out early, and then watching some of our players get back into form in front of our eyes, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But we've got to give a shout out to Jamie Cripps, surely, at the top of the show. Yeah. Career best performance after... certainly, you were keen to drop him. I haven't gone back to listen to see whether I agree.
You agree. Mate, I don't want to throw you under the bus, but there was a yep, I agree from Drew Jones as well. So don't leave me hanging out here.
Okay.
I will happily put my hand up and say that, we got it wrong. Simo, you were right. Well done for sticking with him. I don't necessarily think it was the wrong call based on his stats. I mean, he was averaging 10 possessions a game and kicked only 1 goal in 3 weeks. I mean, he had a lot of mates, obviously, but his form before that wasn't great either. But Adam Simpson stuck with it and had conviction in his decision to trust the players who have delivered for him in the past. And I certainly put my hand up and say I was wrong on that call, because the proof is in the pudding. But I can't give you a clean break on that one, Drewy. There was definitely an agreement.
No, fair enough. Yeah, he had been below par for a few weeks. And like you say, he'd had mates. But I don't think over the season he hadn't produced anywhere near what we expect from Jamie Cripps, because we had conversations about his form earlier in the season, and he probably bounced back for a few weeks in the middle part of the season that's gone by so far. But particularly the last few weeks had been down. But he looked like a different man on Sunday afternoon. 26 disposals, which was a career high. 5 goals, an equal career high. He's done that twice. But he looked dangerous. He was smothering, tackling, chasing, putting on pressure in the forward 50, creating turnovers and goals for other people, as well as getting dangerous around stoppages. I know Nic Nat did that great sort of behind the back tap to him from a throw-in. So he was doing it in different ways. He took contested marks, scored from open play, from stoppage, and then he did all the hard things that were required as well. So complete performance from him. And we badly needed our senior players to turn things around. We're putting our faith in them. We've built a premiership run for the last few years trying to win the flag around them. So we needed a bounce back, and we got it from Jamie. And Liam Ryan started to hit some form as well, which was good.
Yeah, his second half was excellent. I mean, the first half you went, he's not at it again. The forward line wasn't really functioning. But as the game wore on and we played a lot better and opened the game up and they dropped off, he came to the fore and got his confidence back, which is great. 3 goals, 4 for him. Jack Petrocelli finally cracked the 20 disposal mark. Drewy?
Thank God.
Yes, thankfully. I mean, that has been my knock on him. Not his talent, not what he can give us, just that he doesn't get the footy enough. But when he gets his hands on the ball as often as he did against the Crows, getting up to that 20 mark, well, then you can see how damaging he can be and that he deserves to be in the team. So that was a nice moment. But the big one, I guess, apart from Jamie Cripps' performance, was the debutant in Connor West, who was just fantastic, and he gave us exactly what we needed: a little bit of extra grunt and a little bit of extra zip around the ball. I mean, I think sometimes, unless you had watched Connor West up close, you think, in and under player who is an overage recruit who had been playing in the waffle, and you think, the leg speed won't be there. Isn't that your automatic summation? Oh, no, that probably won't be that quick. He's got a little bit of zipper about him, doesn't he? I really like that. So his game was fantastic on debut. Geez, he made a difference.
Yeah, I really liked what he brought to the team. Early on, he was getting the ball in congestion a lot, so he was forced to – it was probably a little bit more rushed than he would have liked. But as the game went on and he started to not only win those contested possessions but also spread and get around the ground a little bit, it was great to see. Gave us something a little bit different. 13 contested possessions on debut, which is a pretty handy effort. He had the most of any West Coast player. So that's how he was advertised a little bit by Adam Simpson. And for those who watch the Waffle Eagles and have seen him play for West Perth over the years. So great to see. And he didn't look out of place. He didn't look nervous. He came in and performed his role straight away, which I guess is part of the appeal of getting a mature age recruit. So it gives everyone a boost, doesn't it, to see a debutant come in and play really well. I like his story. He's got a bit of footy pedigree. Robbie West played for West Coast, Footscray, won a premiership with Port Adelaide in the Sandful. So his family have got a bit of football history to it, and he obviously understands how it goes. I liked that he also came in and got to play in his position. Yeah. Makes a big difference when if you're going to draft a midfielder and then bring them into the team, you want to be able to play them in their primary role for the most part. And he looked good when he was given the opportunity. Yeah,
I think he started at half forward, probably just to get him into the game, get used to the pace a little bit, but it wasn't long before he was on the ball and winning it in tough. And I think he's there to stay. When Jack Redden comes back, they may have a bit of a dilemma selection-wise if other guys are back in form, but I think he adds an element to our midfield, which we need at the moment. Let's see if that stays that way over the next couple of weeks until Jack Redden comes back, who was in really good touch before he got injured too. So, that was interesting. Some of the other young players who came in and impressed. Harry Edwards, my immediate thought and messages were going around is, this guy needs to stay in the team. He just needs to stay in the team. He brings so much composure defensively for us with ball in hand, and he's such a good matchup player. I know it's going to be difficult to manage the amount of tools we have in the team, but he was so impressive yet again. So I think you just have to go with Oscar Allen second ruck and play Harry Edwards. And I don't know what that means in terms of moving someone else forward. Maybe Jeremy McGovern goes a bit of second ruck. I don't know, but it feels to me like Harry needs to stay in the 22.
Yeah, like what he brings. We talked about him a lot, especially after those couple of wins against Carlton and Richmond, about how good he looks and how good the decisions are that he makes. And we've seen it, with games on the line against Richmond and certainly against Carlton when we were up against it. Still got a few little kinks to iron out, but I thought he almost looks better and better every game. Like that, he looked really good down back against the Crows. Certainly didn't get beaten in too many one-on-ones that I can remember. 8 1-percenters for the game, which is a team high on the day. So really impressive. I thought him and McGovern worked together pretty well. Like, we haven't seen McGovern and Edwards together too often because usually it's been Harry replacing Jeremy whilst injured. So, we got a bit of a different look. Tom Barrass for me needed a rest. Like, he just seemed like he was a bit weary. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage it when Barrass is fit again. We've thrown around the idea of Harry Edwards potentially contributing in the ruck.
Yeah.
Whether McGovern or Oscar Allen could do that as well. But yeah, it looks increasingly difficult to leave him out, which is a great sign. He's only played 6 or 7 games of footy, so we've definitely found one. And Adam Simpson, whenever he talks about Harry Edwards, he does say, he's ready. We want to get him in. We just happen to be blessed with a couple of really great key defenders.
Yeah, so that's going to be a tough one for the match committee. But look, Tommy misses this week again, I'm pretty sure. So no worries this week. But when he comes back, that's going to be a dilemma. But hopefully they can find a way around it, because we just look more assured with Harry Edwards in the team. And the youngsters, whenever they've come in, have given us a lift mentally as well. They've freshened everyone up. So that should be something that they'll look at, no doubt, as well. So the game as a whole, look, let's take into account that the Crows are really battling. I think on form, they're the worst team in the competition right now when you look at their output over the last 6 weeks or so. So let's take that into the discussion too. Let's not get too carried away. It's not as if the Eagles are back. You know, we've been really disappointing. I think it was the two most out of form sides going head to head on Sunday, but thankfully we stepped it up a level to the level we know we can perform at. And so that's calmed everyone down a little bit on the Eagles. But the Crows are poor, so that should be taken into consideration. And we love playing at the Adelaide Oval. I don't know what it is, but we just feel really confident there. But the way in which we grew into the second half was the most impressive part. You could tell early on the intensity was there. You could tell early on they want to play a more attacking brand out of defence. They are trying to change their game plan. The eyes aren't darting laterally as much as they were 2 or 3 weeks ago. You know, every now and again they go the switch, but they're looking forward first. All right, where can I get the cut-off ball into the centre of the ground to get us going into attack? And that's been so pleasing. They battled with that, I think, in the first half, and the Crows were playing reasonably well. And then in the second half, they just started to grow into it, and we ran over a team that's battling at the moment. So the style of football looked a whole lot better, didn't it?
Yeah, I was a bit worried early, just with how dour the game was. But you're right, there was a bit of intensity to the game early. Both teams, I guess, were intent on making sure they made it a really solid contest as opposed to trying to open the game up and score a lot. So we got that. The two butting of heads early. And once we got a bit more confidence, Adelaide's defensive systems and structures probably didn't hold up for the whole game. We were able to break it open. What I liked was we didn't always look for the lateral kick, but it didn't have to be the bomb down the line either. The idea of getting the ball moving a little bit quicker, maybe using handball to advance the ball to try and get an option to open up. It sounds basic, but it's just so true. And Shuey did it a couple of times. You know, the little give and go handball can sometimes just open up little bits of space. Maybe that's been missing the last few weeks, and maybe that's because the confidence is down. But having a little bit more bounce off halfback, if you're going to attack from there, you need to sort of take the bull by the horns a little bit and try and make things happen rather than just bombing down the line and it's sort of a hiding to nothing a little bit. So that was good to see. And you're right. I mean, look, Adelaide have only won 2 of their last 13 games. They got absolutely smashed on, Friday night footy against the Bombers. So confidence clearly down for the Crows, but they still would have felt like they had something to prove. So they weren't going to roll over yesterday, and they've got some good and hardworking young players and some experienced veterans. So we still had to get the job done. But it's pleasing to get the win on the board and see a few of the guys who've been down on form start to pick things back up again.
Yeah, the forward line didn't function well early, and then, they were trying hard. They just couldn't get their rhythm going, and then it started to click a lot better as the game opened up. We've spoken about Liam Ryan. Obviously, Cripps was great from the off. Petra's giving us a bit. Jack Darling was working hard. Again, didn't have a big breakout game, but that's okay. He looked better. The only concerning one, I think, at the moment is probably Oscar Drewy. I know he kicked a big goal late, and you can see the relief on his face, but he seems to be playing banged up a little bit at the moment. He took a couple of big marks, but you just thought that was a game for him to really shine, and it wasn't quite there. I just wonder if he's playing injured a touch at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's been that way for a little while. So whether playing through the arm injury earlier in the season is catching up with him a little bit, well, it's just the workload on a young player that's sort of taking its toll. But he's been low possession-wise over the last few weeks, which I'm sure you've noticed. He hasn't been getting his hands on the ball a whole lot, and he can still be influential with 8 or 9 possessions. But one of the things that we always talked about with Oscar, especially early days, and have through the journey of the podcast, is that almost every time the ball goes near him, he affects the contest in some way, whether it's bringing the ball to ground or getting the ball himself. doesn't feel like he's as influential right now. So whether he's just carrying a couple of niggles and not feeling it form-wise, that's something that we need to remedy, whether that's via, a rest or whether he gets managed into the twos for a while or whether we have to work a bit harder to get him into the game. That remains to be seen. But, it's once he's back up and running again, that's a massive part of our game and a massive part of our push towards the finals.
Have you noticed that in the Eagles team song now, they do that little bit that the players have started before so there's a responsibility there to be the shouter of that part, the one to get it going. I'm pretty sure Jake Waterman had the responsibility, but obviously he's out of the team. By the way, he kicked 4 goals and had 30 touches in the waffle, so he'll put his name forward, although, the tall balance is going to make it difficult for him, you would think. But I noticed Tommy Cole had the responsibility. So I wonder if that's going to be like in the future, like the handing over of the Australian cricket team song. It's when someone like Nathan Lyon's got it now and he was given it by, I can't remember who, but like it's a big baton to pass on. I wonder if that's going to be something in the future to start the Eagles song and to do the part before the chorus gets going. I wonder if that's going to be something that becomes, a big responsibility within the camp. But I saw Tommy Cole had it on the weekend and he seemed to deliver it with a lot of vigor.
Seems like the most Tommy Cole thing to do. Like it's him to a T. I've loved his season, by the way. Mate. He's sneakily becoming one of my favourite players.
I'm just unabashed Tommy Cole fan.
I just love how he attacks the ball in the contest. He's like really wholehearted. Like you could never get mad at Tom Cole for anything.
No, that's the perfect way to describe it.
Like,
yeah.
Like he just couldn't do. He can just do no wrong.
He's like the favourite kid in the family. Let us get away with a lot more. I don't know what it is because the effort's always there. I think he's our best 1% player.
Yeah, and it's not even that. It's not because he doesn't have the talent to be a good footballer, or I wouldn't necessarily think he's a coach's pet or anything. I just think it's just the way that he plays his football is just so endearing to fans. Like I trust him.
Yeah.
I trust him when he's near the ball.
We discussed it before. I find him very smart. He makes great decisions when the other team's getting us in transition and they've got their spread on. He makes great decisions on whether to close down the player with the ball, peel off his opponent and try and make it more difficult for them to move it or to stick with his man. He gets that right so often. He's quick. He shepherds a lot. He lays a lot of spoils and tackles and he's good with foot. I actually gave him a vote. We'll get into the Nest medal votes in a moment, and there was a big spread across the players. He got in for me. I just think his ball movement, especially those little kicks just to get us going in the corridor, to get our ball movement rapid in that sense. I think Tommy Cole was excellent, and defensively I thought his game was top-notch. So I gave him a vote this week, as did a few others. He managed 7 votes across the board from people, not enough to get him in the Nest medal votes, which we'll go through soon. But, a number of people have recognised his contribution. I think he's been fantastic. And it's not an easy backline to stay in right now when you consider Nelson's been dropped, Witherden's been dropped, Rotham's been dropped this season. The coaches realise, I think, how important he is.
Yeah, it was very close to getting a vote from me. And certainly there were a couple of times during the game where you were like, Tommy's having a great day. 13 disposals, 5 tackles. It's not massive on paper. But yeah, you're right. It's sometimes it's the off the ball stuff that he does so well. Really trusted lieutenant, key part of the back 6 or 7. And as you say, bigger names, I guess, arguably have gone out of the side ahead of him, and he can play multiple roles. So yeah, he's a ripper. I'm increasingly enjoying the work of Zach Langdon. So I think interestingly, Garby, if you want to talk about the way that West Coast move the ball, it's been noticeable, certainly last week and this week, that Langdon's getting the ball a bit higher up the ground. And I wonder if that is a concerted effort to try to help the movement out of the back line. If you get your half forwards pushing up a little bit higher, just having that extra option for that kick-off half back. So Langdon did it really well on the weekend. Petruccelli had over 20 disposals for the first time. But his link-up play higher up the ground was good. So Langdon only had 3 kicks, but a lot of the time he was taking those little link marks and then he'd just fire out a handball and keep the ball moving, like a really crucial part of the way we move the ball. So just wanted to give Zach another shout out, and Petruccelli probably falls into that same bracket, playing their role and obviously following instructions, getting higher up the ground, and that helped us advance the ball.
Most certainly. All right, let's get into the Nest Medal votes. Drew, the only downside of an Eagles win is that the amount of votes increases exponentially, which means it takes a lot of work to count them all up. But we love it. Well done to everyone for getting involved. Jamie Cripps looks like, at the moment right now, I've got all the numbers down there. It looks like Brian Lara's 280 against Australia at the SCG, such as the scorecard for Cripps. It's just 5s all over the place. So he was clearly the best on ground as per the Nest Medal listeners and for the Nest Medal, and from myself and you as well. We've actually got very similar votes because I know what yours are. We've got the exact same 5, 4, 3, 2. You go first, mate, and then I can see where I can add on that, and we'll give our different 1-vote pollers.
Okay, so Cripps with 5 was an absolute lock, as we know. Shannon Hurn, we haven't really talked about yet. I guess we just expect excellence from the former skipper or the captain, as anointed by Dermot Brereton during the commentary. He was awesome down back, an absolute wall, used the ball really well. I mean, everything that we expect from Shannon Hurn, he delivered. But in the game I know it was only Adelaide, but it was a game of real importance for us to get back on the winners list. And Hurn just delivers all the time. Like it's getting to the point now where like it would be foolish for us to not sit him down and say, you need to play next season.
Yeah.
Because he's playing such good footy. Yeah, he's playing so well.
561 metres gained for Shannon Hurn. And what I liked about him is those marks he took early. So our confidence would have been fragile early on in the game because of where we've been. And he just took 2 or 3 big marks in defence that would have just settled everyone down. I think the impact of that can't be understated, because if the Crows kick 2 or 3 early from that, the crowd gets up and about and we start to worry and perhaps retreat a little bit mentally. That just had such a big impact on us winning the football match, I reckon.
Yeah, I think he's lifted in terms of intercept and contested marks, it feels like, this season. Maybe it's because others haven't been as effective in that area, but it feels like it's an area that he's really excelling in this year. He's done that a lot. Maybe it's because we've been getting beaten and the ball's been down there more, or I'm not sure what it is, but he just seems to have excelled. So he's been awesome. As the year has gone on, he's probably got better, and hopefully he's willing to go on another year for us. I've given Elliot Yeo 3, so I thought there's been a lot of – I've loved what Elliot's brought to the table since he's been back in the team. There's been a lot of energy. There's been a lot of fire in the belly. He's been around the ball, laying tackles, pressuring. He probably converted all of that into probably a few more disposals. He got his hands on the ball a bit more.
Yep.
We saw the classic Elliot Yeo sharking taps from Nic Nat and getting clearances, kicking long. Like, that's what you want to see. You want to see Yeo with the ball in hand in a bit of space, like putting his foot through it, kicking at 60 metres. And you want to see that just manic attack on the footy and the man, and that's what we're getting from him at the moment. So once the midfield chemistry starts to work, like, we're going to be able to exploit his skills even more. But again, a mighty performance in the midfield from him, and enjoyed everything that he brought to the table. Yeah,
well, he had 6 inside 50s, 8 clearances, 7 score involvements. I mean, that sums it up. And that goal he kicked was huge for us as well in the second quarter. I mean, that was like the game was tight. We were starting to break through, but we weren't really maximising our ball position, and that goal just sort of broke it open a little bit and it deflated them. So big moment on the scoreboard too. Yep, I agree with you on that with the 3. We've both got Nic Nat and the 2. Geez, I mean, it was probably because it was his 200 game. I don't know why I got lost a little bit, but the game started and you went, oh, he's up against Riley O'Brien again. Yes, like, he loves this. It's like it almost got forgotten a touch. No surprise that he had another big game considering the opponent too.
Yeah, and sold Riley a bit of candy.
He would have loved that.
The slow motion candy. But I guess, I mean, if you're running at Nic Nat and he's sort of getting towards the 50, about to unload on the right foot. Like you would be pretty sure that he was going to go on the preferred. So it was smart by Nick to sell the candy, and he kicked a reverse torp on the left, which I enjoyed. But his work around the stoppages, again, elite, as we've come to expect. Like, this is the thing, is that he gets 2 votes, but he was awesome. You know, it's 7 clearances, 31 hit-outs, and laid it on the platter for the mids all day. Like, sometimes maybe it's just as a West Coast fan, but there's not many times where the commentators really give in to Nick. Yeah. But they did eventually, and they were like Dern was like, West Coast have complete and utter control of the air. Yeah. He admitted that Riley O'Brien could literally do nothing. Like, the game was just Nick's in the midfield. He was putting it where he wanted to, which is really fun to watch. So he's played 200 games, Garby. They've been fucking excellent. It's just been a joy to watch him play football. I'm sure there's not many players who had two knee recos who've played 200 games.
Yeah,
as a ruckman, it's a bloody good effort.
Yeah, let's touch on that a bit now. We probably should have last week, so let's dwell on it a bit now before we do the 1 votes and then give our 5 to 1 from all the listeners as well and update the Nest Medal leaderboard. I think Adam Simpson summed it up best in the pre-match interview and during the week when he said he's a legacy player. So he's the kind of player that goes down in, West Coast Eagles history, not only for what he's done on the field, but what he's done off the field as well, and as a stature Hall of Fame type player in your football club forever and a day. And it's such an interesting story because, when we drafted him, there was so much excitement, Drewy, on Nic Nat, but there was also a little bit of trepidation because you knew he was so raw, you knew what he might be able to give, but there was a little bit of concern that, maybe it won't come together. Maybe he won't develop the footy smarts. Maybe his kicking won't improve enough. That was a concern for fans. And for the first year, that happened a little bit. And then he just worked through that so brilliantly, and his body just got to such an incredible standard, and he just delivers in so many big games. And, he's just unbelievable. Him and Dean Cox, 2 best ruckmen the Eagles have had by such a long way, it's not even funny. And if you're doing your all-time Eagles team, you're playing 2 rucks. Coxie's starting and Nic Nat maybe starting in the forward pocket, otherwise coming off the bench, and you're very happy with that.
Yeah, I remember that game in the wet against Hawthorn where he kicked 3 or 4 goals, and that was just so early days. He looked like a little palm tree with the dreadlocks bouncing around. But he showed footy nous on that night, like for a big tall guy in the wet at Subi to kick 3 goals, and he did a few, like some fancy footwork on the goal line to get one of them, and he soccered one through, and he still had to be in the right place. I remember watching that game at the footy club with the boys after playing for Willetton Amos that afternoon, and knocking back a few pots of Carlton, and you had that special feeling that was, we were seeing the start of something great. And throughout his entire career, we've just been able to marvel at his improvement, and he's become one of the great tap ruckmen of all time. And you know what? It's the whole package and the whole journey. It's so interesting the way that it's panned out. It hasn't been easy for him when you think about all the different circumstances that have been thrown his way. Injury being one, expectation to have to deal with being a high draft pick at West Coast. They give you number 9.
Yeah.
After Ben Cousins. After everything that happened, to show that sort of faith in Nick, to give him that number, which carried I guess in some ways such a burden. And to be a high draft pick for West Coast, to be from Fiji, to be an athletic ruckman, to be a prodigy, that's a lot of pressure to have on your shoulders. And there aren't too many people who would be able to carry that weight. And there's been no collateral damage.
No.
There hasn't been one incident ever. And then there may well have been things that have happened with Nick off the field, and he may have, he's had his struggles with his mum passing away.
Yeah.
But nothing's ever got out. There's no one who's ever thought Nic Nat Nui has done something to me, or he's wronged me so much so that I want to leak this out to the media, or I want to tell someone who tells someone.
Yeah.
It's amazing that that's happened, really. Like, he's an absolute consummate professional player. He's obviously also a sensational person.
And he's also copped a lot of on-field criticism and critique of his game.
Yeah.
And he's never once bit back. And some of it, he's not the perfect footballer by any stretch. So some of it is warranted. There are parts of his game that can be picked out, and he gets a lot of praise. So sometimes you have to cop the negatives that come with that, although he does get targeted a bit because of who he is too. But he's never once bit back at that. And some of the stuff is nonsense and he's irrelevant. And people want to point out how many marks he fails to take in games. It's like, well, that's not his game. It's like saying Greg Williams wasn't a good centreman because he couldn't kick goals from 60 out. Doesn't make you any less effective. His impact on the game is in other ways and always has been since day one. But people still want to point at that stuff from time to time, and he's never once looked frustrated or angered or bitter about it. He's just taken it in his stride and done everything with class. And in the media, he's become such an esteemed performer. And you might remember his first couple of games. I remember one of his first interviews when he almost had the Ron Burgundy, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, I think he was playing with his privates a bit because he was so nervous. And that became a bit of a meme before memes were really around, that went around on social media a bit, because he was just so nervous in front of the camera. And now he's just so confident and so entertaining. I mean, he was brilliant in the Amazon documentary. Whenever you get him in front of a camera or a microphone now, he's just fantastic to listen to. Got little jokes. So we watched him mature on the field and off the field in front of our eyes. And that's been great as part of the journey. So, yeah, an all-time Eagle, of course. And he's just having a wonderful season. I mean, he's flying in the Nest medal votes and the leaderboard, which we'll get to right now. Do you think he's an all-Australian chance, Dewey, if they go with the two rucks?
Well, he should be, because he's having at least as good a season as last year. He's had, Grundy's not going to be All-Australian, I wouldn't have thought. If it's going to be Gawn and Nat Nui again, do you think that's fair? Yeah,
Sean Darcy's making a fair run at it. But he now
might just be too early for Das.
Yeah, he's got an injury as well now that's probably going to halt his progress in that sense. Natanui and Gawn are level on the coaches' medal votes, I think, at 55. So that probably sums up where they're at. And the D's have won a few more games. So, although there's players who take votes off Gawn as well, but that also helps him. So, yeah, I'd say if they go with two rucks, I think Natanui gets in. It's just whether they choose to do that or not. If they go with just the one, I think Gawn gets the honour, which is probably fair enough. All right, Nest medal votes. So Cripps got the 5. Thanks to all of your votes. He absolutely smashed it. Oh, sorry, the 1 vote's from you and I, Drew. So I went with Tommy Cole, as stated earlier. You went with Jack Petruccelli?
Yeah, Petch.
Okay.
Yeah, played well.
Petch got quite a few votes as well. But Cripps gets the 5 from our listeners. Shannon Hearn with 77 gets the 4. I didn't even bother tallying up Cripps's total. It was just so obvious that he smashed it in the end.
Say 300.
Yeah, probably around there. Hearn, 77. Nic Nat gets the 3 with 57. Now, it was very close for the 2 and the 1. Elliot Yeo with 31 gets the 2 votes. And Andrew Gaff with 30 gets the 1, just edging out Tim Kelly on 28. We probably didn't discuss the midfield as much, Drewy, but I thought Andrew Gaff early, I thought, he was looking a little bit sluggish again, and him and Sheed, a bit slow in the midfield. Is that going to hurt us? And then the true Andrew Gaff came in as the game opened up a little bit, and that's when he's at his most damaging. When he can get on the outside, he's hard running, contributes to our game, and he's got a bit of move, a bit of space to hurt you with his foot, and he did that a lot in the second half, and it was the Andrew Gaff of old. And I thought Tim Kelly had a fantastic game, unlucky not to get a vote in the end, but in and under, his zip and his clearance work and his execution under pressure was first class.
Yeah, Kelly looks like he's back in the groove now, doesn't he? Which is good. It's good for us. Gaff, I reckon Gaff just loves playing at Adelaide Oval. I reckon it suits him. Our winning percentage at Adelaide Oval is now better than our winning percentage at Optus Stadium as well. It's just ticked over. So happy to hub in Adelaide if required, if things go downhill. It's good to get the win away. Garby, no doubt about that. Hey, I just wanted to mention the Liam Duggan drop mark and goal.
Yeah.
That's one of the worst bits of play I've seen in a long time.
I felt sorry for him. Yeah, it was just it's like dropping a dolly catch, at mid-off that's like looped up in the air. It just happens sometimes, right?
Oh, absolutely. Duggan's he's still getting back to his best, isn't he? Like, it's taking a little bit of time to get his confidence back, and and get back where he needs to be. I mean, he came off knee surgery, off pretty limited preparation, and they stuck him back in the team. So it's not his fault. He's still getting back into the swing of things.
Yep. All right, so the leaderboard, Jamie Cripps with his 5 moves up to 8 votes overall. Shannon Hearn with his 4, he goes up to 12. Nic Nat with his 3, he's out in front on his own by a long way. Elliot Yeo moves up to 8 votes, so he's starting to gather some votes in a rapid way, Elliot Yeo, and Gaffey got the 1, he moves to 15. So the leaderboard, Nic Nat out to 40 now. It's a 15-vote lead over Tim Kelly on 25. He is just killing it. Jack Darling on 23, Tom Barras still there on 21, Dom Sheed 16, Gaffey 15 now, Jack Redden 14, Oscar Allen 13, hasn't polled a vote in a long time, Oscar, but he had a great start to the season. Shannon Hearn 12, he's gained a lot of votes in recent weeks. Shepherd 8, Cripps 8, Yeo 8, McGovern 7, Petruccelli 7, Shuey and Kennedy on 5, and then you've got the rest after that. So it's Nick's medal at the moment, but I think the 2 big movers in recent times, Elliot Yeo and Shannon Hearn, they've been big players in recent weeks, and that takes us into a St Kilda game, Drewy, which I don't think will be easy. The Saints could be rocked by some players who are forced to miss because of COVID, which could be, obviously a big shame for them. And who knows what happens to the game. I mean, there's every chance games at the moment could be postponed. Hopefully not ours, but it wouldn't surprise at all if you get news in the next day or so that this game has been postponed or whatnot, because the COVID situation is just so uncertain at the moment.
Yeah, when you're getting like the cafes pop up here and there, particularly in places like Richmond, there's a lot of players that live around there, and there's weird stuff going on at the moment, which is unfortunate. It's right around the country, and we've got half the country in lockdown. As much as we joke about coming in from Tokyo, we've got thousands of cases here in Japan as well. There's still a lot going on that we're dealing with in the world, and AFL is obviously not immune from that. So hopefully we can get a game away and keep enjoying footy with some tough circumstances unfolding around the country and around the world. So Luke Shuey, calf awareness.
Yeah.
The soft tissue curse is a pretty big concern for Luke at the moment. There's no update from the Eagles yet as to whether he's going to miss or not.
Yeah, we probably glossed over that a little bit in the aftermath of a rare victory in recent times, Drewy. But yeah, that's a big worry, of course. Hopefully it's not too severe. Adam Simpson did say after the game it was more cautionary than a tear, but it may force him to miss a week. Let's get into the changes then before we look at the Saints. So let's say Shuey goes out. Who would you see coming in? Xavier O'Neill looked like he was the closest. They might go with Jackson Nelson, but if they want a true midfielder, I'd say Xavier O'Neill at the moment would probably come in after Jack Redden still looks sidelined with his injury. Any other changes that you would make? The only other change for me is Bailey Williams out, Josh Kennedy in, and Oscar goes to second ruck. Bailey looked all right. He worked his way into the game late. He struggled early, and then in the second half, he looked a bit better. You can see there's talent there. His confidence is just really low at the moment, I think, at AFL level. But I think it's just the 2 changes. Shuey, if he has to miss, for me, for Xavier O'Neill, and then Kennedy for Bailey Williams.
Yeah, is it definitely Xavier O'Neill? Are we glossing over anyone at the moment?
Well, he was an emergency. The sub was Jackson Nelson, so you could go Nelson, but it's just whether they want to go the true mid or not. I don't know if there's anyone else there who necessarily comes in as the midfield option with Jack Redden out.
Yeah, so I guess the other options are: if you shake around the team a little bit to try and get Jake Waterman in after that performance,
or Jared Brander.
Yeah. So it says on this app I've got here, it says that he had 4 goals, 29 disposals. I think he had more than that, didn't he? He had 34 or 35 touches, 4 goals, 16 marks, 3 tackles. At what point do you look at a performance like that and say you just sort of have to get him in?
Yeah, I mean, it's just whether you want the true mid or not. For me, I think you got to keep another true midfielder in there. The other one is Mark Hutchings, of course, who's been very close.
So Hutchings, did he even play in the waffle because he was a carryover emergency?
Pretty sure he was taken to Adelaide as well. So, yeah, I mean, if Xavier O'Neill plays, he has big numbers too in the waffle. He just didn't play this week. So, yeah, it's
hard
tricky call. I like O'Neill. I like O'Neill.
Yeah.
I
it's
worry
hard to punish O'Neill because he didn't play last week in the waffle.
Exactly. I just worry about the lack of leg speed with Hutch a little bit. And with Connor West in there giving us that grunt, unless you're going to go the tagging option, which I can't see any obvious one there for the Saints, I'd like to see O'Neill in the team, but I can understand if Hutch gets the nod ahead of him or if they go with a Brander. But I just think you got to go the true mid at the moment. We just need to keep some momentum going on ball because that's been an issue for us.
So O'Neill, 26 disposals in the waffle. So Hutch must have been the carryover only.
Right. So O'Neill did play. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, Hutch wouldn't be able to tag Steele, and that'd be you'd want him on Steele. Like he's their prime mover. He's their best midfielder. Maybe Brad Hill, but he probably can't go with Brad Hill in terms of running power. I mean,
no, you wouldn't think so.
But Hill is susceptible, though. That's the only thing. It's like, do you take the opportunity to shut him off? Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, look, there's a few options. They're playing a little bit better, the West Coast Waffle team. They've got a few numbers in. So that's good to see. Were you aware that Peter Stumic's son is now playing for the West Coast Reserves?
I had no idea at all, but that's awesome news. I used to wish I was Peter Simich's son when I was a kid. I was such a big Peter Simic fan. Is he a lefty like his old man?
I can't answer that. I haven't seen Zane play, but apparently he was playing in the reserves at South Fremantle and wasn't getting a game. He's a defender. And because of the struggles that the Waffle Eagles were having in terms of numbers, they brought him over to play ones footy. So a friend of the show contacted me on Twitter just said, he shut down one of Subi's good forwards on the weekend and had over 20 possessions himself. So Zane Sumic playing well, not suggesting he's going to be a father-son option by any stretch, but just an interesting one to have the Sumic name back in a West Coast Guernsey of some description.
Most certainly. So the Saints are going well. They're a team in decent form. This will be a test, and we know they've got speed, and if it's a dry afternoon now in the West, they can stretch us a little bit. We have to be on our game. This will be a much sterner test than Adelaide, and if the game goes ahead without a hitch, they'll be in quarantine. I think that benefits teams a lot. They galvanise. They get really close. They say to themselves, listen, we're going through a whole lot of pain here, just staying in a hotel for a week and can't move around too much and without our family and friends. Let's make sure we cap it off with a win on the park. So usually up against a team that's really motivated. It'll be a big challenge for us on Saturday, I think. I think we can beat them at our best and the confidence is back a little bit, but it's going to be a tight, tense game and their speed can really hurt us on the outside. That's going to be a worry. And up forward, they've got Membry and King playing really well.
Saints are a much better side than they were earlier in the season. If we play the way we did against the Crows and then probably elevated a little more, having got a bit of confidence back, then I think absolutely the game's there for us to be won. It's also pretty important when you think about we need to brush off and beat down these sides who are trying to jump into the 8. Like they're threatening our spot in the finals. And St Kilda, their last 6 weeks and their potential run home threatens our existence in the finals. So it doubles as an important game in that sense, almost an 8-pointer. So yeah, it's going to be massive. And the game's been moved forward, hasn't it? It's now an afternoon game instead of a night game to allow the Saints to get out that night. But COVID has the AFL and it seems like in a bit of flux at the moment, so anything could happen. But generally speaking, WA is COVID-free, and that's a positive thing for us.
We need to win because, the teams at the top are showing some weaknesses as well. Melbourne are far from the perfect side at the moment. They're dropping games that they should win. They play better against the strong teams at the moment, the Ds. We're a long way off challenging for the flag, of course, but if we can get something going, there's an opportunity there to maybe, snag a couple of big scalps in the finals. I mean, the Bulldogs are looking really strong. Port aren't sure of themselves in big games. Brisbane have got injury worries. There's reports now that Lachie Neale's hurt his shoulder again. They've lost some key players. They could be a little bit vulnerable come finals as well. I think there are opportunities there for us if we can really get some momentum going to put ourselves in a strong position, come September. I'm not sure we've got enough to jump into the top 4, but we can certainly get pretty close to it. This is a big moment for us. We have to win this game.
Yeah, you just want to be around and be in the conversation. Like, you don't want to miss out when there appears to be some vulnerabilities elsewhere. We've shown we absolutely can get blown off the park by some of the teams at the pointy end of the ladder. But once we're playing better footy later in the season, when the whips are cracking, you want to be at least in the conversation. If there's going to be a slip up, we want to be the ones that are taking advantage. So it's a massive game for us. They're all big now. That's the position we put ourselves in. We're fighting. Every game is a step towards, hopefully, an extra rung or spot up on the ladder. And I was cheering hard for GWS against the Swans, and then they couldn't hold on, unfortunately.
Yeah, same here. But anyway, hopefully we get the win, Drew. You're in Japan, mate. The Olympics start on Friday, so it's pretty exciting. Just tell us what's in store for you, and are you a big fan of sushi and sake? Because that was the big appeal for me on my one visit to Japan, albeit in Osaka. But, mate, how excited are you, and what's in store for the next few days?
God, I'm so happy to be here. You do not understand, you do understand. You're the perfect person to talk to about airports, and the paperwork and the lines was it was unbelievable. It took us 8 hours from touching down in Tokyo to get to the hotel. So grateful to be here, and there's a lot of negativity around the games to do with obviously the COVID cases rising in Tokyo, state of emergency. There's even been protests from Japanese people here, which is pretty rare in Japan from what we understand. But there's still, 339 gold medals to be competed for and won, and there's some great stories to tell. So looking forward to being here. Looks like Brisbane will get announced as 2032 host fairly soon. So that's our first sort of big port of call. And then looking forward to following the athletes. It's a bit restricted in terms of what we can do and where we can go, but it's still going to be a great experience. As far as Japanese food, love ramen. The missus and I often go for ramen in Melbourne, so that's one of our favourite delicacies. I'm a big katsu chicken man. Nice. Love a bit of chicken karage. Sake, excellent, but you can't buy alcohol out at the moment. That's part of the state of emergency, so you can't go to the bar,
right,
or to a bar, and we're in a bubble anyway, so we're a bit restricted there. But the local mini mart, which I went to last night, does have a variety of beers, so I can sample those. So looking forward to a bit of sashimi, hopefully under the belt as well, and be watching the West Coast games remotely, hopefully live, but we'll see.
Nice, mate. Well, hopefully you see a few Aussie gold medals if you can. I know you can't watch them live. Just enjoy it all the way there, and keep bringing it to us, mate. We'll all be following with interest. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So soak it all up, mate, and hopefully the Eagles give you a couple of wins along the way with a few gold for Australia. Yeah, well, more importantly, West Coast victory. So let's get it done against the Saints, and then we'll go from there, I reckon. Thanks, mate. Beautiful, mate. Enjoy.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.